Well, it's finally back to school week here in Austin and want to bring you the latest data here in the Austin metro area. I am also finally getting my voice back after being attacked by the summer flu. So sorry I didn't bring a video to you last week, but let's get right to it. So nationally, we are seeing sales slow down to their slowest pace that we've seen in a decade. This data comes out from Redfin, and this will kind of show it to you in a chart. So the typical home when it sits on the market, how long does it take before it gets a contract offer? Well, if we go back to the last housing downturn, it would take a long time. And of course, the market got a little better right up until the pandemic. And then boom, it would sell immediately. Now we're seeing those days on market creep back up to levels we haven't seen in about 10 years. So right now, nationally, we're seeing about 43 days. You can probably double that for Austin. It's more in the 80s and 90s depending on where you're looking in the metro area. But of course, that just tells you that the pace of sales just nationally is slowing down, even though rates, and I'll talk about rates here in a minute, are starting to get a little better. It isn't yet pushing its way into the market with home buyers. So just know we're seeing the markets nationally slow down. How is that impacting Austin? So Austin is one of the top cities where we're seeing the potential for certain homes to sell at a loss. So if for those that bought a home in maybe 21, 22, 23, kind of in the peak of the pandemic, if you go to sell that home today, it's could sell at a lower price. That's about 14% of the market right now. So that's a pretty good number. San Francisco obviously is the highest, almost 20% of their market. We've got other markets like San Antonio where we're seeing about one out of every 10 homes. But just know we are seeing certain sellers underwater with their properties. Unless you have to sell, a lot of those sellers are pivoting into the rental market for a while, waiting for the market to recover. So we have seen that in Austin, and we've probably been dealing with that for about 3 years. But just know Austin, of course, having kind of bubbled during the pandemic, that is one of the side effects is as the price comes down, there's a chance that a certain number of sellers are going to be underwater on those properties. If we look at the metro right now, we are just around a buyer's market. And again, depends where you're looking, but we're seeing 5 to 6 months of inventory. It's going to feel very slow for most sellers. And typically, we're seeing on average homes getting an offer somewhere between 2 to 4 months on average. So just know it's not immediate, and it's gonna take time to get those buyers in the door. If we look at the supply down here, the blue line is showing us that we're above last year. But at the same time, we are starting to crest off for 2025. We've probably peaked out. That was probably May or June. Now we're going to see not as many sellers coming to market the second half of the year. And of course, we're not going to see as many buyers either. Demand remains below our 10-year average. If I show that to you on a different chart, this is our active versus sold listings right now. So you can see the green really peaked out in May, almost 16,000 single family homes for sale. We're now down to about 14,800. So we've seen it shrink a little bit. And a lot of that is we just haven't had new sellers come to market the second half of the summer. Most of that has just been either certain homes are selling or we're getting withdrawn and expired. Maybe those spring sellers didn't sell and they're taking their homes back out of the market. We peaked on buyers in May. We had about 3,100 sales in May. Last month in July, we were down to about 2,700 home sales. So again, we're seeing the number of buyers come down, the number of sellers come down as we wrap up the summer. This is our sales price trend for the last 3 to 4 years. Obviously, this was the pandemic where we really peaked out on price. If you bought a home in this area over here and you're trying to sell it now, that's that percentage of homes, maybe 14%, that are underwater. If you bought it before 21, especially, you should be fine. There should be equity in that property, and that can get sold. The peak for each year has come down about 10 grand. So we were probably sitting around 460 in 2023, 450 in 2024, now about 440 in 2025 for the peak of our median home values. When's that going to turn? It's hard to say, but as long as we have inventory climbing and we don't have a lot of buyer activity, It's going to take a minute. I'm hoping that we will see that start to tighten next year as the apartment supply and some of those things tighten up in the market. Well, Leander made one of the top 4 fastest growing cities in the US. This is number 4 most moved to zip code. Who else was on this list? Pardon me, still recovering from that flu. So if we look at the list, we've got Cypress, which is part of the Houston area. We got New Braunfels, Winter Garden, Florida, Leander, Katy, McKinney, San Antonio. So we're still seeing Texas make up half this list of where people are moving to. And of course, a lot of them are suburban areas like New Braunfels, like Leander, like Katy. So getting around Houston, Austin, San Antonio is where we're seeing a lot of people continue to move. Leander, my college roommate, was the mayor of Leander in 2010, and it had like 27,000 people back then. Now it has 85,000 people just 15 years later. So it's almost quadrupled in size. And there's tons of new construction in Leander if you go out that direction. So not surprised to see Leander continue to pull in on this list. Finally, let's talk about mortgage rates. So we're seeing mortgage rates now hovering in the mid 6s. They've quietly come down. I don't think we've felt the buyers really notice, but we have seen mortgage rates kind of really come down the past, I'll call it the summer. This looks back into May, and rates were still kind of going up after the early tariff announcements, got up to like 7%. But since then, they've come all the way down to mid 6s. So we've come down about half a point. Remember, the Fed hasn't done anything. This is all the bond market. And so even though the Fed hasn't made any announcements, we've seen mortgage rates come down. So we're going to keep an eye on that because I know there's going to be a lot of Fed speak between now and September. Pay attention to that. But we're seeing rates really start to come down. And I think that hopefully could be a little bit of a tailwind as we head into the fall. If you're a seller right now, the good news is we peaked on inventory. I think we're going to start to see inventory continue to come down in the fall. What we want to see is some buyer stability and see a few more buyers come back to market as we get into the fall months. The weather gets better. Everybody's done with vacation. So we really want to keep an eye on that. If you're a buyer, you still have the tailwinds of lowering interest rates and high supply. So you have a lot of opportunity to negotiate in the market. Anyways, hope this video was helpful. You can follow us each and every week on my YouTube channel at Ryan Kelly Group. Make sure to click that subscribe button. And of course, if you know somebody looking to buy, sell, invest, or finance here in Austin, we'd love the opportunity to talk with you. Well, my kids are going nuts. They are ready to go back to school this week. We are excited for them. Hope you are too. Anyways, enjoy this week. The weather's good, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Thanks.